السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا وارزقنا إخلاصا في القول والعمل. آمين يا رب العالمين. All praise and thanks are due to Allah. We praise Allah, we thank Him, we glorify Him. We thank Allah for all the blessings that He has given us. From His blessings is that He has allowed us to gather in the masjid, in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to go over one of the important acts of Islam, one of the pillars of Islam, which is the action of the Hajj, and along with the Hajj, the Umrah as well. We ask Allah that He accept. So today, inshallah, will be the third and final session. Inshallah, we should be able to cover the actions of Hajj, inshallah. And of course, after this, if you have any questions, you can speak to me. You can send me an email, or you can stop by and ask any questions, inshallah. Feel free to do so. So obviously, there's a lot of steps involved. By and large, most of the time, if you're going with a group, you just follow with the group, and by and large, all of the actions are done. Now, before we get into the actions, it is important to note that just like in many areas of Islamic actions, there is sometimes difference of opinion, right? When it comes to the actions of Hajj, by and large, all of the actions are followed by everyone. Everyone does these same actions. The only question that comes in sometimes is it followed? Do you have to do it? Is it okay to leave off? Is there a penalty for it or not, right? But everyone does the actions, but the question only comes up if you happen to leave it off by accident, if there's a situation that comes up. So these sort of areas, there is a slight differences of opinion here and there. When it comes to difference of opinion, it's usually best to just consult with whoever you have on your group or whatever what the group is doing. By and large, if they have like a scholar or somebody on the group, you just follow along, inshallah, and your Hajj should be fine. Because sometimes when it comes for Hajj, which is slightly different than other acts of worship, aspects of logistics actually are something that we need to consider. Obviously, moving from one place to another, from one place to another, sometimes a group may be assigned a specific time to be at a certain place. So that's something to keep in mind. And sometimes, because of these time allocations, you may maybe you may do an action that's not necessarily following what you learn or what you follow, but inshallah, it's with one of the four schools, for example, one of the opinions. So it's fine that you go along with that, inshallah, and not cause unnecessary conflict. If you have questions, you can speak to anyone that's there. And if not, you can have my number. You can reach out to me from there as well. Inshallah, I can try and help out to the best of my ability, inshallah. Okay, so just keeping that in mind, let's come back to where we left off. So if you remember, we're doing the Hajj, which is called Tamattu. Tamattu means that you first go and perform Umrah, and after Umrah, you do the actions of Hajj. So we talked about going from here, or going from any country, going to Mecca, performing the Umrah action. The same thing applies if you go to Umrah at any time of the year. The same things that we talked about, going to Ihram, going to Mecca, performing Umrah, shaving, trimming the hair. Okay, the same thing applies. Now, the difference is now for the Hajj, tamattu is after you finish Umrah, you're going to now do Hajj. So we talked about between your Umrah and Hajj. After his Umrah is finished, now you have a few days before Hajj starts. If we just flip this light off, if you don't mind, and maybe turn one in the back maybe on. Yeah, you just shut it off. It's fine. Yeah, you just shut it off. Yeah. It's okay. Maybe one in the back you could turn on if you want, just so there's some light. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. I think that should be fine. I think that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Exactly. Okay, thank you. It should be fine. So between Umrah and Hajj, we try to spend the days getting some rest. You try to do voluntary tawaf. Each tawaf is 7 rounds. You perform 2 rakat after every tawaf. You don't have to do sa'i. There is no voluntary sa'i. There is no quickly walking. There is no ittiba for men, which is covering the right shoulder. This is all voluntary actions that you do in between. The important thing is try and get some rest. Now, we talked about these days in a glance last week. We're going to go through each day in detail, inshallah. This is just an overhead of where we're going. So right now we are in this corner right here. Masjid al-Haram. From here, we're going to start off by going to Mina. From Mina, we're going to go to Arafat, and then from Arafat, we're going to come to Muzdalifah, and then Muzdalifah to back to Mina, and then spending time in Mina, right? So from Masjid Haram to Mina, Mina, you jump to Arafat, and you kind of come backwards to Muzdalifah, then Mina, and then you kind of go back and forth from Masjid Haram to Tawaf, and so on and so forth. So this is just an aerial map of where the places are. You can easily see this on Google Maps. Last week, we also mentioned some of the approximate miles. This is obviously approximate because it depends which direction you're going, how you're going, if roads are closed or not. But if you have to walk for whatever reason, just keep this in mind. This is how far places are from the other. So you can kind of be prepared for that, right? If you want to walk or if you don't want to, if you're taking a bus or if there is no bus available, taxi, whatever the case may be. Okay, so let's begin with the first day of Hajj, which is the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. The 8th of Dhul Hijjah. So if you're doing Tamattu, your Umrah finished before the 8th. Maybe on the 5th, maybe 6th, something like that, right? Maybe even on the 7th, right? So the 8th, you start the actions of Hajj. Now, I put 8th because that is a general practice. It doesn't have to be on the 8th. Some groups may leave towards for Mina on the seventh night, for example, or seventh evening. So it's not a must that you have to start on the 8th. So if you have a group that departs that tells you that on the 7th, the night of the 7th, we're going to depart to go to Mina, that's perfectly fine. It's not mandatory to start on the 8th. If you go to Mina ahead of time, it's perfectly fine. Generally speaking, many groups they start on the 8th, the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. The 8th is, I think this year it could be like Tuesday or Wednesday, right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So what happens on the 8th? What you're going to do is, just as we mentioned before, you're going to clip your nails, trim your hair if you have to, because now, unlike Umrah, you're in Ihram for a few hours. Now you're going to be in Ihram for a few days, right? A couple of days, 2, 3 days. So you want to make sure if your nails are long, for example, trimming hair, etc., that you take care of that, right? That is taken care of. Um, you also we talk about that it's recommended to take ghusl. So if you're in the hotel, you take the ghusl. Wudu is only done if you can't do ghusl. If you're in the hotel, you do ghusl. That's the sunnah. It's recommended to apply perfume before you get into the state of ihram. At the hotel room, we mentioned men will wear two garments and sandal slippers, just as we talked about before. Women remain in their regular clothing. You perform 2 rakats. Again, this is a sunnah prayer. If you can perform it in Masjid Haram, that is good. Right? But if you're staying away very far from Masjid Haram, it's fine. You can pray in your hotel room as well. There's no issue with that. The idea is that doing ghusl and performing 2 rakat is recommended. This is a sunnah action. But the main thing is that men they change into the ihram garments as we talked about, and both men and women you have the intention for Hajj now, not for Umrah. Before when we're coming into Mecca, we had the intention for Umrah. Now you have the intention for Hajj. Intention is simple. You don't need to make it complicated. You just know inside your heart, I'm going to perform Hajj. That's about it, right? And then you say the talbiyah, which is labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik. So for men changing the clothes and for both men and women, intention and saying the talbiyah is necessary. Once you have the intention, you say the talbiyah, you change your clothes, you are in the state of ihram. You are now in the state of ihram. Just as we talked about Umrah, there is no difference. It's the same thing. You basically exited and now you re-enter. Mind you, you don't have to go to the miqat, you don't have to go far away. You do all of this from where you are. So if your hotel is by Masjid al-Haram, you do it by Masjid al-Haram. If your hotel is in a place called, many people say in Aziziyah, for example, you do it in Aziziyah, right? Wherever you are, you do it from your place of accommodation. You don't have to go anywhere to change into ihram, right? This is a lenience that the Sharia gives you. You don't go anywhere. You from where you at, you just change into ihram because your travel is going to come, right? So there is no hardship. There is no going to Masjid Aisha. None of that applies here. Okay, it's quite simple. On the 8th or on the 7th, if you're leaving on the 7th, you just re-enter into the state of ihram. And everything we talked about the state of ihram, about what you shouldn't do, what you are allowed to do, everything applies what we talked last week. Okay. So relatively straightforward. So again, just to summarize, the first day is the eighth. The eighth, you will enter into a state of ihram, re-enter rather. You may do it on the seventh, depending on your group. Whether you do on the seventh or whether you do on the eighth, it's perfectly fine. The idea is that you get into a state of ihram. Once you get into a state of ihram, oh, this is just the talbiyah over here. You can say labbaik Allahumma hajja. This is reported the Prophet actually sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this once. It's like a talbiyah slash intention to go in for Hajj. Inshallah, I'll give this on a separate file. I think I did email it actually last week, and if you haven't received it, you can reach out to me and I'll send it. And the famous talbiyah as well. Even if you just say labbaik, that automatically counts the minimum talbiyah you put yourself into a state of ihram. And if you memorize, most people have memorized the second one, but if even if you say labbaik Allahumma hajja, this is something good. It's not mandatory, but to say a talbiyah is necessary at least once. Clear? Okay, what happens after you enter into the state of ihram? You then will go to Mina. You then will go to Mina, right? That might take a long time, it may take a short time, depending on how things are going, right? But the idea is that eventually you'll end up in Mina on the 8th. So what do you do when you go to Mina? Let's just say you performed Fajr, and after Fajr, let's just say you left around 9 o'clock in the morning, and let's just say with all the traffic and everything, it took 3 hours hypothetically. And now you end up in Mina around 12 o'clock p.m. Be right before Dhuhr time. So what do you do at Mina? In Mina, you pray Dhuhr, Asr, I should say, actually, yeah, you pray your regular prayer, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha are shortened. You perform Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha short, right? Like a traveler. So Dhuhr will be 2 rak'ahs, Asr will be 2 rak'ahs, Maghrib remains the same, Isha is 2 rak'ahs, and then you perform the witr prayer. Okay, so you perform the regular prayers shortened, as if you're a traveler. You spend time wisely. This is just advice by doing worship. And of course, you want to get a little bit of rest too, because this is the last day of just relaxing a little bit. You get rest. It is very important that you memorize your tent number and you stay with your group. Unless you're a very, very experienced Haji that's been there a lot, Mina could get very complicated because it looks all the same in many cases. So you can get lost very easily. So even if I know some people that are like more experienced and they'll hop out, they'll take a train and they go visit their friends in a different area and then come back. If you're very confident and comfortable, go ahead. But make sure you memorize that tent number at least you go outside, like an address and write it down somewhere. Even phones are not, because what if your phone runs out of charge, right? You should always have written like on a piece of paper and keep it with you on a belt or something in case you get lost, right? And then of course you're going to spend the night in Mina. So the eighth day is very simple overall. You just re-enter into the state of Ihram. You go to Mina, you just perform the prayers in Mina. There is no specific act of worship. Generally, you can recite Quran, you can make dua, you can do dhikr, whatever you're comfortable doing. You get some rest. Important, you just recognize where you are, right? Memorize your tech number, and you just going to spend the night there. Clear? Yes. When you say talbiyah, from there, you should do it from there. You shouldn't wait till you come to me. Yeah. You can, but the sunnah is to do it from Masjid Haram, from there. So you should say Aziziyah. Yeah. That's right in front of Mina. That's close. You just do it from Aziziyah. Yeah. Yes. You should do it before you enter into Mina. Yeah. Aziziyah is outside of Mina. Yeah, but it's very close to Mina. So your travel to Mina is going to be very short. So you do it from Aziziyah. Yes, they can. Yeah, yeah. So that's what I was saying, that it may be on the seventh. Some groups, like when I did Hajj like a few years ago, I remember we went on the seventh night. Like at Isha time, we're in Mina already. Oh yeah, that's fine. Meaning delayed, if it's a little delayed. As long as you get to Mina before the next day of Arafah, you're perfectly fine. And even if you don't, let's just say something crazy happens and you don't go to Mina at all. Let's just say hypothetically, I doubt that's going to happen, but hypothetically something happened and you were unable to go to Mina at all, your Hajj is still valid because this is Sunnah action altogether. It's not a pillar of Hajj. Arafah is the main thing that's coming up. Yeah. So, but in your case, as easy as right there. If you find your group is not going, just one and go to. I mean, you'll be able to walk there. Yeah. Eight, yes. Like after Maghrib, it will be the night to begin. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. To Arafah. Yeah, that's fine too. That's fine. This is all recommendation. So this is a perfect example of logistics, right? I'm sure that the group was either directed or has something that, because the thing is, you're when you're talking about dealing with like millions of people, they direct certain groups to be at a certain location at a certain time. It doesn't always work out that way, and that's why you have major traffic jams. To try and alleviate that, what they will do is they will tell a certain group you have to be in at a certain location by the 8th. You have to be at a certain location by the 7th, right? So in this case, if your group leaves Mina before the 9th, before the next morning, after Isha they leave Mina, it's fine. The Hajj is valid. It's not mandatory. It's not mandatory. His sunnah is to spend the night in Mina, but if for whatever reason logistically you have to go, then it's fine, inshallah. And I wouldn't deviate away from the group. I usually recommend people just stay with the group at all times. Now, don't deviate. Even if you disagree with what they're doing, it's always better, inshallah, because your intention is in the right place and it's this is not a major action to be done. So they're doing it, and inshallah, if you have the intention that I'm doing it for the ease of everyone, one group makes a huge difference. Trying to get certain people to a location makes a huge, huge difference. So inshallah, just have that intention. I would personally advise you just to stay with the group. Yeah, but this is yeah. To Arafah. So you should be happy actually. You avoided the next day traffic. You got there ahead of time, and you can spend time there. So that's good in a way. But like my group, for example, we it was the opposite. We went to Mina like on the 7th. Like we went like Asr on the 7th. We were already in Mina. We're relaxing. There was barely anyone there. The next day, everybody came. So sometimes these are logistical things. This spending the night is a sunnah. Is a sunnah. It's not mandatory. It's not mandatory. That's the most important thing. Okay. So the 8th in general, aside from entering to State of Ihram, all of these actions on the 8th is recommended. Even if you skip going to Mina altogether, you were Ihram, you went straight to Arafah without even going to Mina at all, the Hajj is perfectly fine. Yeah, final question before moving on. Yeah. No, I do want to go slide by slide, but just in case, I don't want you to miss anything. Inshallah, if we have to go over after Maghrib, I'm sure if you want to stay, we can go over, inshallah. Yeah. This is just an example of sleeping in Mina. Obviously, it varies greatly depending on groups. Some groups will have couches with, beds coming out, and some groups will have something like this. It can vary. This is just an example. If you just Google certain images, you'll find plenty of variations, right? This is just an example. Again, these are an example of the toilets and showers over here that you have. If you're not used to using the hole in the ground, then you should get used to it. If you're used to it, then you're perfectly fine. Um, in some ways, I think that could actually be more hygienic because there's no skin to skin contact on a toilet bowl. So in some ways, but anyway, these are just examples. Just for benefit though, I would recommend like if when you're in Mina, to try and schedule yourself where you, if you can, like use a restroom and do like an hour before prayer time comes in. So if it's Asr time coming at 5 o'clock, just schedule yourself at 4 o'clock. You're just gonna take care of whatever you have to do and then you just come back because once you get closer to prayer time, everybody's rushing there. You're gonna be stuck, right? So just these are certain things that you can benefit from, inshallah. So you're not wasting time on lines and so on and so forth. Okay, now we finished the 8th. The next day is the 9th. The 9th is one of the most important days, right? Because the day of Arafah is a highly virtuous day. Those that are not there, they're fasting, but the people that are for Hajj, it's a day where dua is accepted. It's a day where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks boasts about his servants to the angels. A lot of virtues about this day that we hear in khutbahs. In terms of what takes place on this day, let's just say you spent the night in Mina. Or you already went to Mina, like you already went to Arafah in a few cases. But let's just say you spent the night in Mina, you prayed Fajr in Mina. Now you're going to go from Mina to Arafah. You're going to go from Mina to Arafah. If you look on the map, as we showed you, it's the furthest point, right? So you're in Mina right now. For Brother Nashid, this is Azizia right here. As I mentioned, Azizia and Mina is right next to each other. So you have Mina, you're going to go from here on the ninth to Arafah over here. Okay, so obviously this could take some time, right? It could take some time. If you do get there before Dhuhr time, if you're there before Dhuhr time, what do you do before Dhuhr time? You just rest a little bit. Because the making dua of Arafah starts after Dhuhr, not before Dhuhr. Of course, if you just generally want to make dua, that's perfectly fine as well, right? So the idea is that you get there before Dhuhr, you try and get some rest, get some energy in, and then before Dhuhr, you listen to the khutbah and reminder. Now, what usually takes place is in the main masjid, there is a khutbah that happens. And then followed by the khutbah, you have Dhuhr and Asr prayers. Okay. Now, if the groups are extremely close, the people get to go and pray in the masjid, right? Some groups, they may not pray at the masjid, but their group will broadcast the khutbah from the main masjid. So they'll be in their tent and they'll hear through a radio or a TV or some sort of broadcast the khutbah. Some groups may not have that at all. Okay, so some groups will actually be by the masjid, they'll pray salah at the masjid or outside the masjid. Some groups, even though they won't be by the masjid, they for whatever reason their group is facilitating listening to the khutbah by broadcast, by phone, by TV, whatever the case may be. Some groups don't have that at all. So what do they do instead? They will have they will have someone from the tent give a khutbah of sorts, like a reminder. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so even if you don't hear the main khutbah, right, you still may listen to something in the group. Usually a scholar from the group or an imam in the group or someone from the group will stand up and give a small reminder. Afterwards, we have Dhuhr and Asr shortened. Now, I wrote over here is that the general practice is that Dhuhr and Asr is shortened and combined in Arafah. That's a general practice. Okay, just so you know, there is some difference of opinion here. Some of the scholars, Abu Hanifa in particular, rahimahullah, he viewed that if you're not praying in the main jama'ah, meaning if you're not in the main masjid, or you're not hearing the prayer through like a broadcast and praying with the main jama'ah, he viewed that you should pray Dhuhr and Asr short but not combined. That's his opinion. Most of the other scholars, including even some of the Hanafis themselves, Abu Hanifa students, they disagreed. They said, no, everyone should do Dhuhr and Asr shortened and combined, regardless whether you hear the main khutbah or not, whether you're praying with the main imam or not. Whatever you do in your tent, it has to be Dhuhr and Asr shortened and combined. Okay? So, what do you do in this case, right? I would personally recommend you that you just follow what your group is doing, right? If you find that your group is performing Dhuhr and Asr shortened and combined, pray Dhuhr and Asr shortened and combined, that's a perfectly valid opinion. If you find that your group says, no, we're not going to do Dhuhr and Asr combined, we're going to separate it, then just follow your group. I mean, there's nothing wrong with praying Dhuhr in the Dhuhr time and Asr in Asr time either, right? You don't have to make it an issue of conflict. And unfortunately, spoken to some, and their text kind of splits with each other. Like some people are doing it together, some people are not. It's not that big of a deal, right? Whatever the group is doing, you want to stay with the jama'ah. You want to stay with the group to the best of your ability. So if you find that they're listening to a reminder, Dhuhr Asr is taking place together, shortened, just pray with them. If you find that they're praying separate, just pray separate, inshallah, and there's no issue with that. Don't be the lone wolf or the lone group and try to get other people and do something that you believe in. It's just going to cause unnecessary conflict, unnecessary fitna, and this is a test in Hajj. We're not there to, argue with one another and fight with one another and fall into this sort of fitna, right? Just follow whatever the group is doing, inshallah. Both opinions are perfectly valid. Is that clear? So on this slide, I just wrote Dhuhr and Asr shortened and together at Dhuhr time because that's a general practice that most will do. Of course, you eat enough to get energy, but don't overeat. And this is, it needs to be said because aside from the fact that you're going to get tired if you overeat, as we all know, You also want to avoid, any sort of stomach issues, stomach problems, especially because of the heat, the weather, the restroom situation. So I would say just watch what you're eating, don't eat too much, and just be careful with that, right? Um, the standing of Arafah, wuquf, is from Dhuhr to Maghrib. So once Dhuhr takes place, right, when Dhuhr prayer takes place, that's when in Arabic they call it the wuquf. Wuquf means standing, right? So the best manner to make dua is to stand, face the Qibla, and make dua. Now, if you can go outside and find, you've seen the images of the mountain, and if you can go there, walk there, that's great. Not everyone has the energy to do that, and obviously that's outside, right? So even if you stand outside your tent, that entire region is Arafah, right? The entire region is Arafah. So you can stand anywhere. So you don't have to go hiking towards the actual Jabal, the actual mountain, to go stand to the top of the mountain. You don't have to do that. It's extremely crowded. If you have the energy, that's great. If you don't, anywhere that you are, if you stand, face the Qibla, you make dua, that is perfectly fine. If you find yourself getting tired standing outside, you can even come back inside the tent, stand inside your tent, make dua inside the tent. If you can't stand, if you're feeling tired, you can also sit down and make dua as well. Though the recommended action is to stand up and make dua for as long as you possibly can. The best thing to do is, if you're young, you stand up. If you're elderly, I would say stand up for a little bit, then sit down for a little bit, go outside for a little bit, come back inside for a little bit, kind of see where you're at, right? And of course, stay hydrated throughout the day. It's not like a salah where you have to be non-stop making dua. You can take pauses, you can drink some water, you can go use the restroom, right? The idea is that you want to make most of the time engaging in dua. And just remember, this is the time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, he boasts about the servants, all of the servants that are making dua on that day, those images that we see. Allah boasts to the angels and says, look at my servants, they've come disheveled, they've come tired, what do they want? And of course, the mercy and forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And same thing that we mentioned last week, it will be good, you can have like a list of dua, whether it's written down on a paper, whether it's written down on your phone, right? But sometimes it's hard to make dua for that long. You don't know what to say, how to say it, what to ask for. So even for now, any thought that comes to your mind, if you just jot it down, jot it down, jot it down, and then you have that list in front of you, and you can use that list and you can make dua, no problem. Dua could be in Arabic, it can be in English, your language, any language that you want to make dua in is perfectly fine. If some groups, sometimes they'll come together and make dua for like 10, 15, 20 minutes, you can join with that too. You can do it individually. The important thing is to spend time making dua, right? That's the most important act of worship, actually. Not reciting Quran. Dhikr is good, reciting Quran is good, but the most important, the action that is prioritized in these hours is dua. It's prioritized is dua, right? You can increase in your dua to continue saying La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu wa huwa ala kulli shayin qadir. So while you're making dua, constantly say this dua, and this is because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that the best dua and the dua of the prophets is on the day of Arafah is La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu wa huwa ala kulli shayin qadir. Now someone might say this is not dua, this is praising Allah, but from the etiquettes of making dua is that you praise Allah first and then you make dua, right? So constantly repeat this. So you make dua, you say the dhikr, make dua, say the dhikr, make dua, say the dhikr, and let the time go on until Maghrib time, inshallah. Any questions regarding this? Okay. This is just an example. Again, tents vary greatly, right? So you can have couches, you can have some open thing like that. It really depends on the group, but this is just an example of the place. Again, you can be inside the tent making dua, you can stand outside, you can go to where the people are. The entire area is the plain. As long as you're within Arafah, you make dua from Dhuhr to Maghrib time. Okay, so again, so what do? We went from Mina, we came to Arafah. In Arafah, we prayed Dhuhr and Asr, right? Combined and shortened, or maybe separated depending on the group. After Dhuhr, we made dua all the way until Maghrib, all the way until Maghrib. Clear? After Maghrib is then when the next move begins, and that is to go towards Al-Muzdalifah, towards Muzdalifah. Okay, you cannot go to Muzdalifah before Maghrib. Without, there is no group will go to Muzdalifah before Maghrib. The group will not. No one goes to Muzdalifah before Maghrib. It just doesn't happen, right? Right. You have to stay within Arafah. You have to stay within Arafah until Maghrib time. The maximum your group might say is let's start moving, but they won't leave the boundaries of Arafah. They might try to get a head start and kind of take you towards maybe the boundary to the border of Arafah, but there is no leaving Arafah before Maghrib time. Once Maghrib time hits, that's when the groups are then permitted to start going towards Muzdalifah. Now, your group may leave right after Maghrib, or you may be there for another couple of hours, right? The reason why I mentioned that is because you do not pray Maghrib in Arafah. Even if you're in Arafah, and after Maghrib, you don't leave for another 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Maghrib time is leaving. You do not pray Maghrib in Arafah. And there is no difference of opinion on that. No one prays Maghrib in Arafah. You're going to pray Maghrib with the Isha in Muzdalifah. So you do not pray Maghrib in Arafah. So even if you're in Arafah, and you see Maghrib time has started, Maghrib time is finishing, you're on the bus, for example, or you're waiting in line, or whatever the case may be, do not pray Maghrib in Arafah. If some people, they may do without knowing. They may say, oh, time's running out, let me quickly pray Maghrib. No, just remind the person there is no Maghrib in Arafah. Maghrib has to take place in Muzdalifah with the Isha together. This is something that everyone agrees upon, right? The Dhuhr and Asr combined thing, we mentioned the difference of opinion. This one, everyone says that you pray Maghrib Isha in Muzdalifah. Okay. So as we mentioned, be patient. This may take some time. Maghrib is not performed at Arafah. It is performed in Muzdalifah at Isha time, along with shortened Isha. So even if you reach Muzdalifah like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., right? As long as you get there before Fajr time, you pray Maghrib and Isha in Muzdalifah. Hypothetically, if you don't get there before Fajr time, then you find wherever you pray Maghrib and Isha. But in most cases, even if you get there like 5 minutes, 10 minutes before Fajr time, hypothetically, then you'll pray Maghrib and Isha at that time, even if it's that further delayed, because the idea is to pray it in Muzdalifah, not anywhere else. Okay, so in Muzdalifah, obviously, you locate a suitable place, you lay down your sleeping bag, you're going to have to rest in the open skies. There's no tents in Muzdalifah. You would pick those pebbles because you're going to be stoning the next few days, the stoning of the Jamarat, or as some people call it, the Shaitan, right? So you pick pebbles over there. By the way, you don't have to pick pebbles in Muzdalifah. Some people think that you have to pick in Muzdalifah. Even if you pick pebbles in Mina, for example, it's fine. So even some groups they'll give people pebbles. I've even seen that's perfectly fine. It doesn't have to be from Muzdalifah, right? This is just done conveniently because there's a lot of pebbles there. But if you find pebbles in Mina, if your group gives you pebbles, it's perfectly fine. But let's just say you went to Muzdalifah, you don't, for whatever reason, you don't have any pebbles. You want to pick some pebbles. How many are you going to pick? I would say about 75 to 80 because you're going to need a total of, does anyone know? Yeah, you're gonna need a total of 70. And if you just take maybe like another 10, 15 extra, that's perfectly fine, just in case, right? You have some extra on you. As I mentioned, pebbles don't have to be picked up from Muzdalifah. You can pick them up from Mina or Arafah. It really doesn't make a difference. Now you spend the night in Muzdalifah, you focus on getting rest. Spending the night in Muzdalifah is, most of the scholars say, is something you have to do. Now, there's a couple of things here. One is that there's an exception for the elderly and the woman. The Prophet ﷺ gave an exception for the elderly and the woman to go to Mina, which you're going to go the next day early. So for the elderly and for the woman, there is an exception. You do not have to remain in Muzdalifah. You can go ahead of time. You can go ahead of time. Now, if the group facilitates that, that's perfectly fine. So if you see the group is saying that, if there's anyone elderly and women, if they want to go early, and if they want to, they can go early. There is no harm in that. There's no issue in that. And of course, if you remain in Muzdalifah, that's a better thing, of course, right? But that's just the only exception for leaving Muzdalifah. The other thing is some groups they'll leave Muzdalifah earlier, right? Like they won't spend the entire night. They'll spend like half the night, for example, or a little bit more than half the night. Because technically, once you spend more than half the night, you've done your stay in, you've done the stay in Muzdalifah, right? Because half the night is the bare minimum to meet that requirement. The question comes in that at Fajr time, we're going to talk about you're supposed to make dua in Muzdalifah. This is an area, just so you know, there's some difference of opinion. The Hanafi scholars, they say making dua the next morning after Fajr is wajib. It says wajib. The other scholars, they say it's recommended, it's sunnah. Now, your group may stay until Fajr time, and then of course there's no issue with that. Some groups they will leave earlier. They will leave like after half the night. They've done the bare minimum and then they leave, right? Again, my personal thing is to follow the group, right? If you leave off the standing in Muzdalifah, according to most of the scholars, it's a sunnah, it's not mandatory. Hanafis, they say it's wajib. If your group stays until the Fajr time and you get to make dua, that's perfectly fine. Alhamdulillah, that's good. There's no issue there. If your group happens to leave earlier, well, you should be leaving with the group. And just know in your mind that most of the scholars, they say it's sunnah. And usually, again, groups, they don't do this on purpose just to mess up your Hajj. They're doing it for a logistical reason. They are obliged to be at a certain location at a certain time. And if a few people, unless you're an expert in Hajj and you've done it so many times, you have no issue going from place to place, and you're like, okay, I don't care what my group is doing, I'm going to stay here. Well, then that's your initiative, right? But if you're not, then you shouldn't, just be a lone wolf and strand outside or go outside or stray outside your group and then potentially get lost and be in a difficult situation. Just follow with the group, inshallah. And that's why I'm mentioning the difference of opinion here. Most of the scholars they view it as sunnah, but the Hanafis they view that to be wajib. Now, according to Hanafis, if you leave it off, your Hajj is not invalidated. The Hanafis just say that there is a penalty to be done, and then you can talk to someone about that, or you can even message me. We can arrange that if you really, really want to follow that opinion, right? So even with the Hanafis, there's some slight leeway. They don't say it invalidates your Hajj. They just say it's a penalty. You should have been there, right? Is that clear? So it's a lot of information, but just try to keep that in mind. My personal recommendation, just follow your group, inshallah. And then you can deal with whatever comes afterwards. This is an example of Muzdalifah nights, usually open air, sleeping bags. You can perform Maghrib and Isha over there at 12. Um, okay, now let's just say Fajr time came in. Right? So okay, let's recap so far. We were in Mina on the 8th. We went to Arafah on the 9th. We after Dhuhr we made dua in Arafah. After Maghrib we started going towards Muzdalifah. In Muzdalifah we prayed Maghrib and Isha. Let's just say we spent the night in Muzdalifah. Now Fajr time comes in, right? What you would do is you would pray Fajr early. You do not delay Fajr in Muzdalifah. Meaning, as soon as the time comes in, you perform 2 rakat sunnah, then you pray the Fajr, right? As quickly as possible. Right? Do not delay. Why? Because you want to make dua during that time before leaving, right? So if your group says we're going to leave at X time, right, let's just say half an hour before Fajr time, you want to pray Fajr as quickly as possible and spend some time making dua in Muzdalifah. And this is Al-Mash'ar al-Haram, which is mentioned in the Quran. So the idea is that you pray Fajr early. As soon as the time comes in, you pray the Salah, right? And you make dua in Muzdalifah. After you're done with that, the group is now going to the next step, which is now back to Mina. Back to Mina. The 10th day has a few actions going on. So you pray Fajr, you make dua, you then go to Mina. When you go towards Mina, before you go inside back to your tent, what you're going to do is this is the first stoning that you do, right? The first pelting, as we would call it. You would pelt the Jamara al-Aqaba in Arabic, or the big Jamara, or as people call it Shaitan, right? Which is not actually Shaitan, it's just people dub it based on the story of Ibrahim, but this is the Jamra, right? Jamratul Aqaba. Signs will be clear. You'll definitely know which the big Jamra is. As you see, there's an example of a sign. It says big Jamra. Literally, it says that. It says Jamratul Kubra in Arabic. And if you don't know, if you ask anyone, they'll point you out. Or you'll just see the crowds going towards it, and you should be fine, right? So you go to the biggest one, the Jamara, right? The stoning building, as I'll show you a picture, has the big one and it has the other ones as well. Just follow the signs once you're there to go to the appropriate or the correct one. Once you go to Jamrat al-Aqaba, you will count that panel, right? As you'll see it as a panel with 7 stones. Okay, just so you know what it looks like. Let me just quickly show you. So this is an example of the building of where the Jamarat are, where the stoning takes place. Externally, you see this is Mina over here. These are all pathways that people will be coming to go and stone, right? Uh, the building has many floors. So some people will be on the highest floor, you have the lower floor, the lowest floor, right? So different entry exit points. There is no virtue and higher versus lower. All of it counts, right? Um, that's something to keep in mind. This is an example of what the modern Jamara looks like. It's like a wall panel almost, right? So, and it's like a panel, and around the panel, there's like a ditch sort of where the pebbles they fall into, right? So you don't go, you don't throw it from that far because if you throw it from that far, you may hit someone on the head, right? So you just be patient, try to get as close as possible, and then you just aim for this wall over here, right? Even if it doesn't hit it and bounce off, as long as it falls into that ditch area, as you'll see, then it is perfectly fine, right? So you want to get as close as possible. You don't want to go wacko and hit someone on the head or anything. You don't want to push anybody. You just want to go as close as possible, and you just want to pelt it 7 times, right? But this is what it looks like. It's like a panel wall right here. Even though every year there's some funny videos circulating of people like, throwing sandals and slippers and things like that. I'm not sure if those videos are always, I can't believe people actually do funny stuff like that. But what you do is you just take your pebbles and you pelt it, right? Now, coming back here, when you pelt, with each throw, you say takbir. You say Allahu Akbar. So you go there, you try to get close, you take out one pebble and you say Allahu Akbar, right? Or you say Allahu Akbar first, you throw it, and then you take out the next one, Allahu Akbar, and you throw it. So you do that 7 times. Each throw you say a takbir. This is a recommendation, it's a sunnah. If you forgot, let's just say you threw three and then you remember, oh, I supposed to say takbir. If you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar 3 times, it's fine. If you forgot altogether, it's also fine. It's not something mandatory for the Hajj, but it's a good recommendation. It's a sunnah, right? So you with each throw you say Allah, but usually you'll see people also doing it, so you shouldn't forget. But if you forget, it's okay. Okay. After you finish pelting, after you finish pelting, what's taking place around the same time is the sacrifice. The reason why road sacrifice takes place is because in most cases, if not all cases now, you're not physically going and doing a sacrifice. In fact, most groups don't even see where the sacrifice is taking place, right? Most groups don't, right? If you've been around and you've done Hajj before, you know where the sacrifice place is and you want to go see it, I mean, you can. But in most cases, you're not going to be even exposed to that. You're just going straight to the tent, right? You won't be exposed to it, which brings up a question that we'll talk about because the next action that should take place is shaving and trimming your hair. Shaving or trimming your hair. So for men, again, we mentioned it's better to shave your hair. Now, what if you already shaved during the Umrah that you performed? Then whatever little hair that you have, if you won't run a blade through it, that's perfectly fine, right? Or if you trimmed in the beginning because you want to wait for your shaving here, that's okay as well. You can trim for Umrah, you can shave for Hajj. If you want to shave for Hajj and then just pass a blade through, that's fine as well. If you say I don't have hair, I barely grew, even if you pass a blade through it, your intention counts. That's all that matters, right? You can. Yes, you can. Yeah. Or if you don't want to trim, if you don't want to shave, you can trim as well. But if you do trim, you have to make sure that the trimming is done throughout your head for men, right? So it shouldn't be like a fade only over here, for example. It should be done throughout the head. For women, it's just as we mentioned after Umrah, just trimming a little bit is fine, like maybe like one finger point, perhaps, right? If you take your index finger, the first marking that you have from the top, that is minimum enough to trim your hair, right? For a woman, right? So once you shave and trim, at that point you're out of the state of ihram. So if you think about it, you're on the state of ihram for the eighth, the ninth, and like half of the 10th. Once you shave, trim your hair, you're out of the state of ihram. Everything becomes permissible, meaning wearing regular clothes, wearing perfume, for example, wearing sneakers and shoe and socks for men, for example, women covering their face, for example, putting a hat on your head, for example, all of these become permissible. It's perfectly valid at that point. The only thing that remains, just for benefit, is that spousal relations. That remains prohibited until you do the main tawaf. Other than that, every other normal action is permissible. Every other normal action is permissible. The one question that comes up before we go to yours is, uh, The most of the scholars they say to do this in order is something that is highly recommended. It's sunnah. So meaning that you go stone, right? Then you sacrifice, then you shave your head, and the next action that we'll talk about, which is tawaf. However, most of them they say if you break that order, they say it's fine. It doesn't affect the validity, though it's better to stay within the order. But Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he viewed that it should be done in that order, meaning that you pelt, you sacrifice. After the sacrifice, you have to shave your head, meaning you can't go out of order. You cannot shave before your sacrifice takes place, and you cannot do the next action, which will take tawaf. The other scholars they say it's better to keep it in order, but if you break the order, you do tawaf first, you shave, you this, that, all of this is fine, though it's better. It's better to stay with the order. Most people follow the order. The only question that comes up is about the sacrifice and shave. Because as we mentioned, many groups they don't know when the sacrifice is taking place. So some people will wait. Now, if your group tells you that we will find out when the sacrifice will take place, just give us time and we will tell you when our group sacrifice has happened and you want to wait for that, then it's good. Just wait up until you find out that the sacrifice is done. Then shave, trim your hair. Like you're not in a rush. You're there for a couple of days, anyways, right? If your group says that we have no idea, we have no way of finding out, right? We just don't know, right? That we don't have that access or whatever the case may be. Then inshallah, just give some time and try to give it a little bit of time and then shave your head. Don't rush just so you can try and follow within the order. Inshallah, by like Asr and Maghrib time, it should be done. It should be, right? But again, you have no way of absolutely knowing exactly when. So, and if you just, there's no way for you to find out, right? If you're in that case, right? Just give some time, a reasonable time, maybe wait until maybe Asr time or something, and then shave your head, and then you can go on. Now, if you take the opinion that it really doesn't, I don't have to follow the order, that's your opinion as well. Just for benefit, Abu Hanifa says that it has to be in order. His students, though, Abu Yusuf Muhammad, for those that are familiar with the Hanafi school, is made up of Abu Hanifa's opinion and his two students' opinion. Abu Hanifa says it has to be in order. His two students disagree. They say it doesn't have to be in order, and in line with the rest of the scholars. So you'll see Hanafi people that take the Hanafi school, they're split into two. Some people take the opinion of the two students, and some people take Abu Hanifa's opinion. Again, that's up to you. Again, whatever the group is usually doing, especially with tawaf, because they might say that we're gonna go for tawaf at after Asr. So everyone be ready by after Asr, right? So in that case, I would say just shave, trim before that time. Inshallah, hopefully the sacrifice already took place. If it didn't take place, according to other schools, it's perfectly valid. Even within the Hanafi schools, some of them they say it's valid. It's okay. Just go ahead, shave, trim, get into normal stay and go on for a tawaf and just follow along with the group, inshallah. Make sense? Sorry, your question was? I think that should, I have to double check actually. I'll let you know on that. So I think it should be fine. I think it should be fine. But for some reason, that's slipping my head. I'll come back to you on that. Yeah, yeah. I'll have to come back to you on that. No, no, you go to Mina. You're in Mina. Yeah. You don't do Eid. Yeah. Don't worry about Eid prayer. You're in Hajj. Eid prayer for everybody else. Yeah. No, because you're traveling. Well, in theory, a traveler doesn't have to perform Jummah. Right? Unless there's a Jummah that takes place in the tent, for example, or in the camp. But you don't have to worry about Jummah. You don't have to worry about Eid. I'm pretty sure they they removed them. Maybe actually, never looked into that. I'm assuming they removed it. Otherwise, they've been piled up after years and years and years of pebbles there. Maybe they have like an opening on the bottom. It just falls down. I wouldn't be surprised because it falls like into a trench area. Yes. Very good question. Yes. So it's a wajib, meaning if you leave it out, it doesn't invalidate, but there's a penalty for leaving it out. So there's a slight difference. When we say essential, the essentials for Hajj are basically being in Arafah, doing the main tawaf, which we'll talk about, right? These are like the main essential. Like if you don't do it, the Hajj is incomplete. Everything else either falls between a recommendation, which means there is no penalty, there's nothing wrong with it, or if you leave it out, there's a penalty for it. For Jamara, the stoning, it's a penalty essential, meaning if you leave it out, your Hajj is complete, but you need to offer a penalty at some point. So a penalty for that will be sacrifice, so sacrificing an animal like a sheep or goat. Yeah. Yes, it can be done when you come back home. Yeah. So let's just say you speak to someone in your group and they couldn't arrange it for you. You can come back home and speak to someone and they can do it for you. But I would always say that on the group, first just consult with a scholar there that the action that I left off, does it warrant a penalty or not? The reason why we're not going to penalty is going to get very confusing because every action has something that comes with it, right? And it's very detailed. So what I would recommend is with your group, if you missed an action, just speak to someone in your group. Usually groups have scholars. If not, I'll give my number out. You can reach out to me, inshallah. And with even with sacrifices, I know people over there that even when you come back, we can arrange that if that's necessary, if that's needed. Yes. No, it's not. As long as it's done for your behalf. So your group will send like these are the sacrifices that has to done for XYZ. This is not qurbani. This is a Hajj sacrifice. So it's not necessarily mandatory. Once you make that payment and you designate someone else, he's doing it on your behalf. He's doing it on behalf of your entire group. So once he does it for you, it's perfectly fine. I'm doing it for that group. Yeah. This is all the sacrifices. I have to do 80 sacrifices for this group, for example. Inshallah, he has an intention for every single one that uh, sent that ticket. That's fine. It doesn't have to be like specific name by name by name by name by name. Yeah, no, it's done in that vicinity. It is done in that vicinity. There's a place where you sacrifice that. It's not for the lighthearted to go and see. Yeah, yeah. No, no, that's not for that reason. No, no, no. It's definitely not hunting. That's not hunting. That's not hunting. Yeah. For background of his question, hunting while you're in a state of ihram classically was not allowed. So he's saying, what if you're shaving someone's head and you cut part of that? That's not hunting. I just, for something that exact issue is slipping my mind. I'll just get back to you. Maybe when I look back on the email, I'll send it out with that answer of that question, inshallah. Okay. So are we clear so far? So we did at Fajr, we prayed Fajr in Muzdalifah, we made dua, we went towards Mina, we pelted 7 times, takbir we each throw, the sacrifice takes place, shave, trim your hair. Once you shave, trim your hair, you're out of the state of ihram, you're in regular clothes, which now means that you're going to go to do tawaf in regular clothing, which means you can go in whatever you're comfortable with. You can wear sneakers if you have to, because hypothetically, if your ride breaks down, you have no transport, something takes place, you're more comfortable walking around with sneakers, you can. For example, so these are things to keep in mind. Another benefit, somebody asked me, can I wear shoes while doing tawaf, right? In theory, there is nothing impermissible about doing tawaf or wearing shoes, in theory. However, out of etiquette, you don't wear shoes like in the masjid, right? Unless you have to. If your feet start hurting, for example, it doesn't affect the tawaf in any way, right? So if you are doing tawaf, and let's just say your feet have blisters from the last couple of days, you can wear sneakers or something and you can do it, and you'll see some people wearing it. It doesn't negate your tawaf, it doesn't make it any less. This is more just etiquette of the masjid. Likewise, if you happen to do tawaf on the second floor, right? Let's just say there's no space on the first floor, you're doing tawaf on the second floor on the roof, right? If you are wearing sneakers, just mind you, there may be areas where there's like rugs, those rugs that are placed down. Out of etiquette, you don't step over the rug. Of course, as we all know, with your shoes on, you just try and go around if you can. And if you can do it without shoes, that's great. But if you need to wear it because your foot is hurting, that's perfectly fine. It doesn't negate or invalidate or diminish your tawaf in any way. Same thing with Safa and Marwa. Going between Safa and Marwa, you can wear shoes, no problem with that. Yes, as we take right now. So basically, after we shave, trimmed our hair, we change regular clothes, we take a shower, you're freshened up, you go for tawaf. It's called tawaf al-ziyara or tawaf al-ifada. There's two names for it. Yeah. Now, that my next bullet point will mention that. Uh, so basically, again, the name for that is called ziyara or ifada. So if you hear a group say tawaf ziyara, tawaf ifada, it all means the main tawaf. This is the main tawaf for Hajj. The tawaf we did before was for Umrah. This is the tawaf for Hajj. This is the main tawaf. This is a pillar, essential element of the Hajj. As I put over here, is a pillar of Hajj. This tawaf can be done, as a brother was just asking, anytime between the third day of Hajj, which is the 10th, the day that we're in, up until Maghrib on the fifth day, the 12th day. So you basically have the 10th, 11th, and most of the 12th to do it. The 10th, 11th, and 12th. So basically 3 days you have to do it up until Maghrib of the 12th, right? You should do it. Beyond that, you shouldn't delay unless there's a very special circumstances, for example, menstruating women or something like that. That's a different case altogether. But for everybody on a regular schedule, on a regular situation, it should be done from 10th until the Maghrib of the 12th. So there's ample time for you to do it. And usually the group will, or they should at least arrange something. If they don't, or if you fell behind or whatever, you have to try and figure out your way within this time span to go and offer this tawaf. This tawaf can be done at any point of the day or the night. So you can do it in the daytime, you can do it in the nighttime. However, keep in mind it is sunnah to spend, as we talked about before, at least half the night in Mina or more. It's sunnah to do that, which means that if you don't do it, it's fine. It doesn't invalidate your Hajj. But you should just keep that in mind. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is, let's just say you got tired and you said, I'm going to go do tawaf with a group of people after Isha. And you go there and you're stuck there and it took you the entire night, basically up until Fajr to do it. So you barely spent time in Mina. Your Hajj is fine because it's a sunnah. It's not mandatory to stay in Mina, but it's not the best course of action, right? So I would probably avoid that time if you can and try your best to try and complete it earlier. Meaning that if you couldn't do it up until Isha time, then just wait till the next day, 11th, and just do it maybe after Fajr or something like that. Now, if your group is arranging transport, then you should just follow whenever they're doing it. Whether it's after Isha, after 12 o'clock, whenever they do it, you just follow. Most probably going to come back to midnight. Yeah. You have to. The maximum, some groups I know that they keep their hotel room in Mecca for you to go get some rest, take a shower, and then come to Mina. That's the maximum that happen. But you should try your best to spend nights in Mina, unless your group is spending nights in Azizia. With some groups they do, but obviously the Sunnah is to spend the nights in Mina. Sunnah is to spend nights in Mina. Okay, so when you're doing this tawaf, keep in mind you're wearing your regular clothes. So that's why there is no ittiba. You're not uncovering your right shoulder. You're wearing normal clothing, right? Uh, Raman, which is walking quickly for the first 3 rounds, is recommended, not mandatory. Something good for you to do. But again, keep in mind you might be with a few people. You want to keep up with other people, and you're probably going to be crowded, so you might not be able to do that. So you shouldn't put people to walk quickly. It's a recommendation. Just like we mentioned before, after the walk, people say, even in the masjid, you can do so. It's perfectly fine. After tawaf and 2 rakat, you then go on to do sa'i between Safa and Marwa. So the first time we did tawaf and Safa and Marwa, that was for Umrah, and now this is your tawaf and Safa and Marwa for Hajj. This will come up to No, there's no, there's no halaq. There's no, you're in regular clothing, so there is no more shaving or trimming at this point, right? Your shaving and trimming is already done. Yeah, I know there's some for some people. There's a lot of steps. I'm gonna send these slides anyways, and I'm sure some people that are going, you've read with other books. As you go along, if you just keep something on hand and just familiarize yourself with the itinerary of the day, then you should be fine, inshallah. So that we'll talk about it. That depends on your group. That depends on your group, because as we'll talk about, on the 12th, you're allowed to exit. Um, So you return to Mina and stay overnight in Mina. Let's just stick to this for now, and we'll get to your question. So let's just say this is all on the 10th. So you started the day with Fajr, you made dua, you pelted the Jamarat, you the sacrifice took place, you shaved, trimmed your hair, you changed into regular clothing, you went to do tawaf, and at nighttime, alhamdulillah, in an ideal situation, you're back at night in Mina and you're going to spend the night in Mina getting some rest, right? This is the ideal situation, which now takes us to the next day, which is the 11th. The 11th. The 11th, 12th, and possibly 13th, there's only one main action here, and that is the stoning or the pelting. There is no other mandatory action unless you haven't done tawaf. Okay. Now, this pelting has times to it. The timing for pelting on these days begins after Zawal. When is Zawal? Zawal is not Dhuhr time. Zawal is about 5-ish to 10-ish minutes before Dhuhr time, right? So when Zawal finishes, meaning Dhuhr time comes in, you can pelt, which means that you do not pelt before that Dhuhr time. Let's just keep it simple, Dhuhr time. But you can go there before Dhuhr time. Okay, so if you get out of your camp like 11:30, and let's just say you have to walk, right? Many groups you have to walk like 45 minutes, 50 minutes. So let's just say you walk 45, 50 minutes from 11:30 to 12:15, and Dhuhr time comes in at 12:15. You got out before there, but you waited till Dhuhr time. When Dhuhr time comes in, then you can pelt. If you get there early, you just try and stand on the side and you wait until Dhuhr time comes in, and then you pelt. The idea is that you do not pelt before Dhuhr time, but you can get there before Dhuhr time. There's no issue. So you don't necessarily have to wait till Dhuhr time in your tent and then go there. You can get out earlier and make your way there, and then after Dhuhr time comes in, you can just pelt and then you can return. Okay, when you pelt over here, it's not like the tent. You pelt three jamarat, three of them, not only one. And again, when you go there, there will be signs. There will be signs. You'll have these small jamarat, you'll have the middle jamarat, and you have the big Jamana. Just as I showed you the picture, there's a sign that says big Jamana. There will also be a sign for small, middle, and of course big. So the signs are there. You start off with small, then you go to middle, and then you go to big. So you go from the smallest to the largest. That's the concept here. So this pelting can be done at any point after Zawal until Fajr of the next day. Okay, so if Dhuhr time comes in, you have the 11th of Dhuhr time all the way until Fajr of the following morning. So you can do it at any point of the day, any point at night. However, what is the best time, the sunnah time, the recommended time, is between Dhuhr and Maghrib. If you can time between Dhuhr and Maghrib, you can go. So that's important to know because if you feel that Dhuhr time is too hot, I just can't go, just wait, maybe go after Asr time and then do it then. If you set out at Asr time and you got delayed, it took forever and then Maghrib time comes in, it's fine. It doesn't invalidate. You have all the way until Fajr time to do it. But the time lapses when Fajr time comes in. So from between Dhuhr and Fajr, that's the time period. The best time between Dhuhr and Maghrib is valid. Dhuhr to Fajr, best time Dhuhr to Maghrib. You see? Okay, so what do you do again? You go to a small jamara first, 7 pebbles, you pelt it, just as we said, saying takbir, and then you make a small dua. You face the qibla, you make a small dua. The first day, there is no making dua. You just pelt 7 times and then you move on. For this one, you pelt 7 times, you face the qibla, you make a small dua. Then you go to the next one, pelt 7 times, face the qibla, make dua briefly. And then the last one, you pelt 7 times and there is no dua, no dua after this. So anytime you pelt the big one, there is no dua. On the 10th, you pelt the big one, no dua. Over here, small, there's dua. Middle, there's dua. Big one, there is no dua. You're finished. So each one is 7, so a total of 21 pebbles that you would pelt. As you mentioned, if you could not do tawaf al-ziyarah or tawaf al-ifada on the 10th, you can do it on the 11th, and then afterwards you'll go back to Mina. Again, staying in Mina overnight is a sunnah action. Okay. I showed these pictures before. Now you have the 5th day of Hajj, the 12th day. This kind of goes in line with the brother's question. Technically, after the 12th day, you can leave. You don't have to remain in Mina anymore. The Hajj ends early. So there's some groups that stay up until the 13th. Some groups, they leave after the 12th. This really goes back to your group, what they're doing, right? But after the 12th, you're officially allowed to leave at that point. You don't have to stay in Mina any longer. So to the brother's question, if you do tawaf like right before Maghrib and your group is out, for example, then you're out. You don't have to come back. But obviously, you'd be in line with what your group is doing because if you're in Makkah and your group is going somewhere else, then you're going to be lost. So obviously, you try and align with them and you find out what the itinerary is. So, yeah, on the 12th? No, you leave after Maghrib. It's recommended to stay up until Maghrib time. In theory, you can, but it's recommended to stay until Maghrib. Sunnah. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Tawaf doesn't have to be after Maghrib. Tawaf is your final action. We'll talk about that briefly. Hmm? Yeah, it's recommended to leave right before Maghrib. But if you're after Maghrib, you still are allowed to leave up until Fajr time. Up until Fajr time, you're allowed to leave. Yeah. But the recommended thing is before Maghrib. I think that's what the question was, right? Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah. Your group can leave before Maghrib at any point on the 12th after you do the stoning. After you do stoning. Yeah, you can leave, correct. Correct. Yeah. Meaning what I meant to say was it's recommended to leave before Maghrib, basically. But if you stay after until Maghrib time, you can leave at any point up until Fajr time. Up until Fajr time. Okay. Um, so the 12th basically has the same concept, right? You wake up in the morning, after Dhuhr time, you can go and pelt. After pelting, if your group is leaving, you leave with them. If your group is not leaving, you stay. If you haven't done tawaf, however, this is the last day before Maghrib, you have to do that tawaf. So you have to figure out some way to go to Mecca and do that tawaf. This is most cases. Again, the only exceptions sometimes are made. For example, a woman that's menstruating, she needs a couple of days or a day, for example. That's a different case altogether. Generally speaking, for men, there's no way. This is your final deadline. Before Maghrib, you go and you do tawaf. You do tawaf. So you had 10th, 11th, and 12th at some point to do it. The final thing before finishing with stoning is that the only exception for stoning, just for benefit, is if a person is ill, if a person is sick, elderly, or like a woman is just unable to go, she's feeling weak, for example, fragile. These are excuses that allow you to appoint someone else to go and stone. So the general rule for stoning is that you yourself have to undertake it. Feeling a little tired is not an excuse because everyone's tired. But if you're actually like ill, if you're sick, right? If a person's really elderly and really just can't go, right? And maybe the wheelchair can't be pushed, different situations comes up. These are excuses for you to appoint someone else. So you can give your stones to someone else in the group and say, I'm feeling sick, I'm feeling ill, I'm elderly, I just can't do it. I did it yesterday and it completely drained me. I have no energy. You can give your pebble to someone else and they will pelt their own and they will pelt on your behalf as well. So an exception is given in that case. Of course, Islam gives some ease on that, right? So the default is you do it yourself. Cases of sickness, illness, elderly woman, for example, they can use that. Woman, I mean that if you're feeling like obviously weakened and tired and unable to go, right? But again, a little bit of tiredness is normal. That's not an excuse. We're talking about cases where you just physically cannot handle the crowd and able to do it. Okay, so then you would stay in Mina or you'd leave Mina depending on your group. On the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, if you are there on the 13th, what happens is that over here, after Zawal time comes in, the same thing. You go and you pelt. The only difference on the 13th is that you're actually allowed to go before Dhuhr time. Remember, in the 11th and 12th, we said that before Dhuhr you cannot pelt. You can go there, but the pelting is done after Dhuhr. In the 13th, the better thing is to go after Dhuhr as regular, as routine, as the same way you've done the previous 2 days, but it's permissible. You can actually go before Dhuhr time. And some groups, they'll do that. And Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, this is his opinion, actually, he allows it. So if your group says, okay, at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're just going to go pelt and then we're going to leave, it's perfectly fine, perfectly valid. It's allowed for you to do so, inshallah. However, the better thing to do, the sunnah is to do it after Dhuhr. But it's allowed only on the 13th. Only if you stayed on the 13th, you can do this pelting before Dhuhr. Meaning after Fajr, let's just say you prayed Fajr and you just gone on, you pelt and you came back and now you just want to kind of freshen up and get ready to go. That's fine. It's permissible to do so. The same thing applies here. The stoning is the same thing. You start with the small, the middle, the last. You make dua after the small. You make dua after the middle. You don't make dua after the last one. You say takbir with each throw, and then you're going to leave Mina. There is no 14th in Mina. You're gone. You leave. Everyone leaves on the 13th. Now, depending on where you go, you may go to Mecca. You may go to Medina. Okay. If you're going to Medina, most probably your group will take you to Mecca first to do the final tawaf. This is called the farewell tawaf or tawaful wada, right? If you're going from Medina, it's perfectly fine. You go to Mecca first, you do this final tawaf, and you leave towards Medina. If you're going to Mecca, meaning you're going from Mina, you're going to stay in Mecca for like another week or another 5 days. You don't do this tawaf until you're about to leave. So this tawaf isn't done right away. Understood? So let's just say you're after the 13th, your group is going to stay in Mecca until the 17th. That's the itinerary. You can do nafal tawaf, you can do nafal actions, but your final action is this tawaf, meaning that if your schedule is that on the 18th after at 12 p.m. our bus is going to leave towards the airport or towards Medina or wherever you're going, then that morning you want to do the tawaf and that's your final act of worship there. Now, if it's not your final act of worship, meaning that you've done the tawaf and now you're waiting for the group and now Dhuhr time comes in and now your next act of worship is salah, it's fine. It's not that literal, that literally you have to farewell the Kaaba with the tawaf. The, the best thing to do is to give farewell to the Kaaba with the tawaf. Your final act of worship, you do the tawaf, you go to your hotel, you change, you board on the bus, and you leave. If you that doesn't work out logistically, you did your part, you prayed Fajr, you did the tawaf, and now you're waiting for the group and the bus is delayed, delayed, delayed. Now Dhuhr time comes in, what are you gonna say? I already did tawaf, I can't do salah. No, you still go and you perform salah and then you get on the bus and there's no issue with that, inshallah. This is performed just before you leave to Mecca, whether to Medina, Jeddah, Riyadh, or anywhere else. Try to make this your last action, but it's not mandatory to be your last action. Women on menses for benefit are excused. They don't have to perform this at all. There's no penalty. There is no waiting. This is completely waived if women are in a situation like that. There is no uncovering the right shoulder because we're wearing regular clothes. There is no walking briskly. There is no sa'i after this tawaf. This is the final action, and 2 rakat is performed after that, right? And with that, we finish. Again, inshallah, I'll send the slides. You can look over it. You can reach out to me with any questions. You can stop by the masjid and ask me questions. I'm here between Asr and Isha every day. So anytime, any of the prayers you can, of those prayers, you can come and ask questions. You can, let me just show you one thing over here. I think I did email it, but in the case you didn't receive it, it's Adhan time. We finished just on time, it looks like. Oh, there we go. This is basically just a compilation of dua that we took throughout the slides. I did email it. If you didn't receive it, you can email me and you can ask for it, inshallah. I will send it to you, inshallah. It has different dua, different points that you can use. And I'm sure there's other resources too, of course. This is just for, inshallah, just some help if you need so. And then lastly, we do have a class next Wednesday for those that are not going for Hajj on Udhiyah and Qurbani, just understanding sacrifice. This is something that many of us partake in doing every year, so we should be educated about this. So that will be this Wednesday or next Wednesday rather, inshallah on the 28th, same time, 7 to 8. It's just one session, it's not that much, just to kind of educate ourselves on this topic, inshallah. Any questions? If you have, you can ask. I think Maghrib is going to start in a couple of minutes. But feel free, even after Maghrib, if you want to ask me questions, feel free, inshallah, I'll be here. Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan.